Hey, I'm not going to ask you to like subscribe or anything for this. This is purely just something that like I wanted to talk about because, and for a couple of reasons. But I want to give a little bit of context before I get into anything. And I know it's really weird that you're seeing like a freaking little, freaking like VTuber or little model, whatever, talking to you over in this corner, but I don't really want to show my face just for the sake of not, having to deal with that. But just for context, I'm currently in a program going for my master's in education. I already have a degree in mathematics, 4 years, bachelor degree. And I'm currently, I do have a degree in education, but I'm currently going for my master's in education. And something that I had to do was go back and do some observations of other classes. So my degree is in secondary education, but I'm currently having to observe a middle school class as well as an elementary school. So I'm seeing like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, right? And genuinely, some of the stuff I've seen in these last couple of months, I feel like I have to talk about because it's just like I don't have a lot of people to talk to about this because most other teachers going to my school aren't going for math, so it doesn't necessarily relate. And I'm sure it doesn't relate to you. You probably don't give two shits. But the basic idea, right, is not going to be anything super complex. I'm not going to go into really complex math. As a matter of fact, this whole video is about the fact that like the math you probably did as a child is not what they're doing. And it's really, really scary to see, and I feel like a lot of people might not know about this, so I just wanted to talk about it and just rant for the sake of me having a momentary second to like get this off my chest and feel a little better. But the thing is, I've been watching this transitional period, right? There is a transitional period between 5th grade and 6th grade, right? Where this is typically, in a lot of school districts, this is kind of where the middle school starts. They kind of have this like 6th grade transition, and there's a big shift in how students are going about their lives, thinking, things like that. And within this shift, in the modern day, there are some things that frankly are scary. So I don't know about your experiences, I don't know how old you are, I don't know what you're like, but let's say back in 2010, for example. Back in 2010, if you're in 5th grade, you are not using calculators. The amount of calculators that you use in 5th grade is so minor, it's insane. It's actually good, but for lack of a better word, I'm saying insane because it's just such a difference compared to the modern day. So back in that grade, something that you'll see in, let's say, 3rd grade, right? 3rd grade. And these are all going to be basic. I'm not going to do anything weird, whatever. It's all basic math, so don't be turned off by the fact that it's about math. That's what I do. I'm sorry. So back in this grade, you would see 3 times 3 get 9, and you would be able to do this in your head, right? And I'm sure you remember back in the day, they would have a chart where you would see like 4 times 4, 5 times 5, so on and so forth. And this was something you were expected to just know. You were supposed to take 4 times 4 and know it was 16 in 3rd grade. This is supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be very understandable, and the goal here was if you were, I don't know, if your teacher said what's 3 times 6, you would know that's 18. This is something like you would know your basic multiplication probably up to 12 times 12. That was the common thing. So this was an average level of mathematics in about 3rd grade. 3rd grade was the year where you kind of really made it into mathematics, and by the end of 3rd grade, you probably knew basic multiplication, maybe some basic division, all those things. Maybe you started like long division. Or that's actually a group, but maybe you started long division or whatever, right? This was 3rd grade, maybe 14-ish years ago. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a horror story, okay? This is genuinely what a 6th grader is at this age. So number one, this is the interesting part. This is the transition, right? This is that, like I said, this is that transition between 5th grade and 6th grade, right? These students are going from basically one way of life to another. They have to move between classes. They're not stationary. They're not like, oh, I'm going to go with the teacher to the next class. No, they have some authority. They have to go between these classes. They have to take care of themselves, right? But the difference in this modern transition is that in 5th grade and below, they use calculators for everything. So here's the horror story. I was in a 6th grade classroom. This is the year in which you should know percents. You should know, I don't know. You should be doing like decimals. These are things that are basic to most people, right? Like you use these in everyday life when it comes to, you know, change, things like that. This is the level of 6th grade. But I was baffled to see this, okay? So I'm secondary ed, so I'm normally in high schools. This, a student, when I mentioned that 3 times 6 before, they could not do it without a calculator. And I get like, oh, you might not have a perspective on this. You might not know like, oh, well, this is where you should do this or this is where you should do that. Maybe it's been a while for you and you don't remember what you did in these levels. But remember what I told you before. In 3rd grade, you should be knowing just basic multiplication tables. You should know all the way up to 12 times 12 off the top of your head. The idea that you cannot do 3 times 6 and get that as 18 is insane. And it's very scary. The idea that at this level, you need a calculator for the most basic of basic multiplication is scary. Now, when I saw this, right? So it's baffling to me. They're working with fractions. Like they've even seen like variables above fractions, so they know like I can put something in for this x. They know that they can divide this by this and then, you know, get like a simplified version of this fraction. They know all of this. They understand the idea, but they cannot do the most basic of operations. They cannot do basic division. They cannot do basic multiplication. They cannot do any of this without a calculator. And I understand in the modern day everybody has a calculator. You know, you have your phone near you, you know, at all times. But if every time you had to do even the most basic of basic math, you had to pull out your phone, right? And then you open that calculator app, every single time you had to do like 5 times 5 or any of those basic things. I mean, it would be horrendous. They cannot add 2 numbers with 3 digits. Like if you added like 150 to 25, it takes them, they put that in the calculator. And it was baffling to me to see this. So I'm in high schools, and I think this is a more modern day problem. So a lot of the students that are coming to me have already experienced this. They already understand, they know that I need to be able to do stuff without a calculator. The most basic things, at the very least, I need to know this. But these students in, you know, like I said, middle school-ish level to like upper elementary, they don't understand this, and they're doing everything on a calculator, and teachers are letting them do everything on a calculator. And I do not expect a student to be able to do calculus in his head, or to be able to, you know, do some sort of upper level geometry, graphing, whatever, in their head. I don't expect you to do that. But if you cannot do 4 times 5 in your head, in the high school, even the middle school level, that is concerning. And I'm not saying, like, if you have, of course, there are students that have difficulties in learning. They have, you know, they might need a little more help to get there. And that is perfectly fine, and that is understandable, acceptable, and just reasonable, right? And of course, as a teacher, we support that. But the idea that in a general classroom, to an advanced classroom, a student cannot do that. That is concerning. At that level, this should not be a challenge. This should be easy. This should be something that can roll off your head in a matter of seconds. This is basic. And math is something that, builds on itself, right? There are these stepping stones that get to another level. So if you're if you're going past these stepping stones, the ones below that really shouldn't seem that hard to you because you've already done it. You're doing something harder. These things are easier, right? So the idea that they're going through these stages, but it's really not any easier for them, is scary. And I know this is just a rant about something that's silly and probably, irrelevant to you, but it is, to me, it's horrifying. The idea that students could potentially get into the they could get into the high school level, and they cannot do basic multiplication, basic division, is horrifying. The idea that you don't understand how to do long division before you get to middle school is worrying. And I'm not saying, as an adult you should be able to do all these things off the top of your head. No, if you don't use them, you don't need them. But they're using them. They are needing them. But they still don't know them. Because they're not really doing it. They're putting it into a calculator and just solving. They don't need to understand. I think the thing I want to leave off on that really, really scared me, and this genuinely, I heard this, and I didn't experience this, but I heard this from a fellow. And this is horrifying. On a test, right? This is an exam. This is something that is meant to test how you understand the information, how much you retained, and your just overall ability to utilize what you were taught. A student asked, in the work section, right? So they needed to show their work. A student asked, how do I show my work when I'm simplifying this fraction? And the teacher responded, well, you have to show the steps. And this is unbelievable. The student asked the teacher, do I write down that I hit the simplified button? Do I write down simp? Do I write down simplify? Do I write down that I hit the simplified button? Rather than showing their work by showing what they divided by, what they did to reduce this fraction, they were trying to say that all of their work, all of their thoughts, all of their reasoning came down to pressing the simplify button. And again, maybe to someone that's, that doesn't care, that's not, I'm past school, I don't care, who cares? This was baffling to me. This was horrifying. The idea that you're going through school and you cannot do a single ounce of math without a calculator is concerning. And don't get me wrong, again, like I said, if we're talking high school levels or something, that is a different story. But we are talking elementary and middle school levels, and they are not learning this basic level of math. So what are they going to do in high school? What are they going to do? I don't know. And it's just it's one of those things where I can't blame them. It's not necessarily their fault. It's just the idea that they're getting this technology at such a young age and they're not really developing themselves. They're not really understanding how to do it on their own if they had to. If you're in public and you struggle to do basic addition, basic multiplication, basic division, and your phone dies so you have no access to a calculator, you are going to struggle. If the cashier asks you I don't know, it's 5.63 or whatever for whatever you bought, and you cannot look at your change and add it up accordingly, how are you going to survive? These are basic skills that even if you don't like math, you should possess. These are basic skills that you should aim for. These are the things that you need to go about your life. And I understand there are circumstances where some people cannot have this. Some people have problems with this. Some people it is not something that is easily accessible to them. And I get that, and I think that's hard, right? That is unfortunate, that's hard, and I feel horrible for them. because it's really going to make, it is a challenge. It's a struggle. But if everybody, not just one, everybody cannot do this, I don't know what's going to happen. What if the power shuts out? What if your phone dies? What if something big, a major event happens? They'll be lost. There's nothing to do. And I get it. Like, you might not think about it in your daily life. You might not think about, like, oh, I use math every day and blah, blah, blah. But you use math all the time. It is one of those basic skills. I'm not going to say you use it more than your English language skills or your whatever linguistics you have, but you use it every day. So the idea that you cannot do that, you were not taught to do that at a young age, it is going to be a struggle. It is going to be difficult later in life if you have to deal with an unexpected circumstance. I know this was a rant. It was just a rant. I understand. It's just one of those things where, like, I just wanted to talk about this because just witnessing it is so brutal, and it really does make things concerning, and puts a very different mindset and picture for me. And I know you might not care. I get it. No one likes math, whatever. But it is sad. It's brutal. It's concerning, and I really think if you think about that. If you go in your daily life and you just take 5 seconds every single day just to think about all those moments that you used, even the most basic of math. And I don't mean anything complex. I mean the most basic of math. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, the most basics. And if you could not do that without a calculator, imagine how much harder everything would be. Imagine how much time you'd waste. Imagine how just confusing basic things would be. You'd have to check that constantly, and this is truly concerning. And a lot of it comes down to that that elementary transition. And I know middle school teachers are trying to fight this. I know middle school teachers are trying to get them to understand these basic concepts and build on them. But the fact that a middle school teacher has to teach everything again just to get these students to get by, it really is horrifying. And I genuinely have concerns, like, what if this continues? What if this continues to middle school? What if this breaches the high school level and students are having a hard time doing anything without a calculator? I genuinely think, just for the sake of these students, I have concerns just with that. Like, what are they going to do? They're going to have a much harder time just through life, through school. The idea that they'll be turned off from math-related jobs because they might not be able to do everything on a calculator. There's so many concerns, and I know most people don't care about math, I know most people hate it, but I think if you really think about this, it is scary, and I think you'll feel the same way. I really do. Either way, whatever. That was just a rant. This is literally just to get it off my chest and make me feel better. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to ask you to do anything. I mean, if you leave your thoughts, I guess that would be cool. I'd like to hear what other people think. Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I see it, I'm sad about it, and I genuinely feel worry for the educational system. I also want to express, it's not necessarily something that I only see in the US. I have had to research other societies, other cultures, other places, and see how their educational systems work. And it's not necessarily a unique thing to the US, and it really is scary. Yeah, I don't know. If you leave some thoughts down below, that'd be cool. I'd be interested in, reading what you guys think, and yeah, I don't know. Just seeing what another perspective might be. Maybe if you're not in the education system, you haven't heard about any of these changes, any of this transitional period shift that we've seen. Maybe you went to school in 2000 and now you're hearing about this in 2024 and you're like, wow, I did not learn like that. It's just, I don't know. I think, I know there will be people that are like, well, I mean, they'll have a calculator at all times. It's like, yeah, they might have a calculator a lot of their life, and maybe they'll never not have a calculator. But what about those people that don't? What about those people that, do have those certain circumstances? What are they going to do? And, you know, how much easier is your life now that you know these basic ideas, these basic maths? Really think about that. It's just, I don't know. It's really scary. And, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to rant to make myself feel better. uh, yeah. I'll see ya.